In this episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, I am going to share with you how I have gone even further down into the rabbit hole called vibe coding.
Are you ready to take your message, your business, and your life to the next level?
Want to learn from someone with more than a decade of experience, training tens of thousands of people from all around the world?
Hi, Cliff. This is Pauline from Auckland, New Zealand.
John from Calgary, Alberta.
Amy Porterfield.
Michael Hyatt.
Dan here from Dunedin, New Zealand.
Ray Edwards. Mark Mason. Mike Stelzner.
Pat from Smart Passive Income.
It's Darren from Melbourne, Australia.
Now is the time to live the life of your dreams and do the work you feel most called to do in the world.
Welcome to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show.
Here's your host, Cliff Ravenscraft.
Welcome back, my friend. I am delighted and honored that you have chosen to check in once again to hear what's been going on in my world as I share a behind-the-scenes look into what it's like to live that entrepreneurial content creator life. And this week, it has been yet another deep dive into something that has just captured my attention and has become somewhat of an obsession. I think a positive one. We'll find out. Time will tell. But I am very excited about what I have been working on. So back in the last episode, I think it was episode 807, I shared with you that for the very first time, I've been playing around with something called vibe coding, creating my own software using what's called the Replit app. Now, this is something I heard about from Michael Hyatt, and I had already shared in that episode that I had a concept for several different types of software that I could see myself developing based upon what I saw as a demonstration in a webinar hosted by my friend and mentor, Michael Hyatt. In the past episode, I shared that I was only going to tell you about one of those pieces of software, and I don't even think it had a name at the time. It was kind of my own version of a podcast subscription app. And my idea was that I was going to be able to not only subscribe to podcasts, but also to go and automatically request a transcript and then maybe even have some sort of access that once that transcript has been done, then give me some various types of summaries. Might have one option for a very thorough, in-depth. You may not listen to this entire episode, but boy, this particular summary is going to make sure that you got everything that was in it. You're not going to miss a beat, for example. However, then you could have a separate summary, which would be a little bit more of an overview, and it would have key insights and takeaways and pull quotes and other things. Then I didn't mention this, but another thing would be that once all of that has been generated, it would be cool if there's this button that you could click to ask this episode. So just like you have a chat with ChatGPT about a transcript you might have dragged and dropped in there, you could, within the software, go in and ask it questions and say, you know what, you said that one of the hosts of the show mentioned this particular topic. Can you give me more details around that? Give me a paragraph or two telling me the story, the context of that. I'd like to hear more about that. Anyway, been playing around with this piece of software, and last week I told you that I already had the ability built in to what I created just within the first 2 hours of vibe coding. I already had the ability to subscribe to any podcast via RSS. I already had the ability to see a library, the very first page of all of the podcasts that I've subscribed to. I had it in a grid format so that it basically was a bunch of squares of the podcast artwork for each of the shows. And right below the artwork was just a little brief little thing that says this is the name of the show, this is the host of the show, and oftentimes that gets cut off with longer names and or titles of or show names. But anyway, I had my home library screen. Then I'm pretty sure I told you that if I click any one of those podcasts, it then takes me to a page that shows me the feed. So at the top of the page, it would have the artwork again, the name of the show, who the host of the show is, and it would also give me the ability, if I wanted to easily click a button and hit copy the RSS feed. That because there's a number of times when I want to be able to go and just copy that feed and hit paste and share it somewhere else or open it up in a new browser, all of that stuff. And I'm looking here as I go into this, and I think there might have been something else on that page already. So let me just take a look here. Oh, and there was a refresh. So I had set it up to where the feed would take all of the episodes and put it in the database. That way it doesn't have to reload the feed every time you click to see that particular podcast. There are several of us who have hundreds and hundreds, and there are occasions where more than 1,000 episodes are in a podcast feed, and it will take a bit to load all of those. And so, for example, this podcast, episode number 808 is what I'm recording now. If I'm on the library screen and I click on the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, and I immediately want to play episode number 808, I might have to wait 45 seconds, 90 seconds for it to load all 807 episodes and paginate it because it displays 25 episodes per thing. And if the feed is kind of the server that is delivering the feed is slow, it might actually take a second before I can actually click through to the episode player for that particular episode. So I chose to store everything in a database, which does require a bit of time for it to load the very first time. But then once it has everything in the database, it's instant loads. So any podcast I've ever imported into my database, all I have to do is I click on it, and by golly, it is going to load that page instantaneously, which is very nice. The only thing is, though, is that I now needed to go in and tell the software to refresh that feed and check it to see if there's anything new that has changed every 6 hours. I figured that would be more than enough. That's basically 4 times a day. And I did put on the feed page a button that allows you to manually request. You like that? To manually request a refresh. Easy for me to say. But anyway, I added that in there, and it immediately then went and caused it to go and check the feed again. And if an episode was just published, let's say 35 minutes ago, you hit that refresh button and boom, there it is. It downloads it instantly into the database, and you have access to that as well. So I had already told you pretty much that functionality was there. There also was, if you clicked on any episode in the feed, it takes you to a page that is called the web player or the episode page. And on this, it basically has a beautiful looking web player for podcasts. It has everything that you would want, 30 seconds forward, 15 seconds back. It's got the ability for you to click 1x. And if you click that again, it'll take you to 1.5x speed, 2x speed, 2.5x speed, even 3x speed. And then if you click it again, it's going to take you back to the default of 1x. There is also the ability, I mentioned that I was going to add this, but I did add the ability right from the player to click the download button. And that instantly pops open that MP3 player from the URL in a separate tab. Now, I was not able to get it to instantly initiate the download of that MP3 because there's some security systems in place that keep you from requesting a download from some other site other than what you're on. Basically what I need to do is I click the download button. It opens the MP3 in another browser. It starts playing because that's the default behavior of an MP3 file that's loaded up, at least in my Chrome browser. But I can instantly stop that. And there's 3 little dots on the little HTML5 player that is there by default. I just click that, and then there's the ability to download there. But at least I now have the ability to download MP3 files pretty easily from any podcast that I'm subscribed to. Now, this is important for me. And the reason why is because I have trained thousands and thousands of people how to launch a podcast. And oftentimes I want to download their MP3 file, open it up in Adobe Audition, and do some evaluation on a few things. Sometimes somebody's audio is clipping, and I just want to see if it's throughout the whole thing that it's clipped, or if it's just in certain areas. Or sometimes somebody's audio is really, really low, and I just want to confirm what decibel rating is there. Could they benefit from some normalization or a hard limit amplification or whatever? These are things that I need to actually see the waveform of the MP3 file. And so for me to be able to download that is essential. Now, in the past, before I had my own software to do all of this, here's something that I'd have to do. I'd have to go to my client's podcast website. Not all of my clients have their audio players on their site. So I might actually have to go and open up their RSS feed. Well, first of all, I'd have to go find their RSS feed in some cases. Some of them may have learned how to podcast from someone else, and they didn't understand the importance of having your RSS feed listed somewhere on your podcast page, or at least a button to your RSS feed. So I have to sometimes go searching for the RSS feed, which means that sometimes I need to go and, let's just say, search for the podcast, and hopefully it's in the Apple Podcast directory. And then I go and find the Apple Podcast directory URL. And then I would go and take that and I would put it into another piece of software that says, hey, here's a podcast that's in the Apple Podcast directory. Please tell me, what is the RSS feed for this podcast? And then it tells me what the RSS feed is. Then I go open the RSS feed in the browser, or I download it to my desktop and open it up in a text editor so that I can search for that particular podcast episode that I'm looking for, so that I can find the URL of the download of the MP3 file. I was telling this to my friends, Mark Mason and Ray Edwards. We were all doing a little vibe coding show and tell this weekend. And they said, Cliff, I'm exhausted hearing the process that you would have to go through to go find an MP3 file for a particular episode for a client that you wanted to evaluate their file. And I'm like, yeah, this is why I'm so excited that I've learned how to vibe code this page. So what I did is I now can instantly go in and subscribe immediately to this client's podcast. And I'm going to share with you that I no longer have to know what their podcast RSS feed is to subscribe, but instead I also added the ability to search the Apple Podcasts directory right from within my software. So there's a little tab when you click add a feed. It says click. It's got one tab by default. Just paste in the RSS feed if you know it. And if you don't, you just click over here, search iTunes on the other tab. And now you just type in a key phrase. It could be the name of the host of the show or any portion of the name of the podcast name. And it will search and it will go and find all of the podcasts in the Apple Podcast directory that match that result. And you could just click on it and then instantly it's added to my library. I added the ability to go in, of course, and drag and drop the order of the library and make sure that it maintains the memory of where those are for each user. And right now, I'm the only approved user in my software, but I could see myself opening this up in not the too far distant future. And I have already shown this to some folks, and they're like, oh my gosh, I want access to that. And I'm like, well, as soon as I can figure out what the actual economic costs are for some of the features and functionalities that I'll build in, I will be able to determine whether or not I'm willing to open it up. Right now, I could build in functionality that would not have any limits. And if I had a beta user in there and they go in and they're subscribed to, let's just say, 7 different podcasts where it's a Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman, who else? Diary of Stephen Bartlett and all these other guys that do these 3-hour podcasts. And if you go in and just click that request transcript, and you just do that on 10 or 15 different 3-hour episodes in every feed for all of those podcasts, this could add up pretty quickly. Although looking at it, I think it's closer to, it's manageable. But I need to find out what that impact will be before I go giving anyone access to it. And I, of course, can restrain myself and take a look, and I'm monitoring everything. And of course, I have some approximate estimations that I've had the AI tools tell me what this stuff will cost and things, but I want to see real world examples. And so right now it's a closed beta only to myself as the only user. But I did build the functionality in for that. Some other things that I did is I created the ability to create an account with just a username and password. And then I also figured out I didn't figure out. I told the software to go and implement the Google OAuth login so that you don't have to create and store a password in the database. Even though it's hashed and I don't have access to it and nobody else has access to it, you lose your password, sorry, you're going to have to reset a new one. And of course, I added the functionality for forgot password, and it emails you a reset button. And then once you click that reset button inside the email, then it asks you for your new password. And then, of course, that it's saved. But, some people don't want to deal with that. So I added the ability, if you're logged into Google, you can just click log in via Google and instantly you're right in, no password. And in the future, if you don't have an account, it'll say create an account, and you can create an account by clicking the OAuth Google. It says create an account with Google, and you click that button. And if you're already logged in, boom, you're instantly in. Now, right now, if you create an account with username and password, or you create an account with Google, you're instantly in. It just says, the only thing is you're going to say your account is pending approval. It's in beta right now. I built in the functionality for me as the admin, to, from my admin screen, see how many pending beta user requests are out there. And I can, from the admin panel, grant access or revoke access to anyone. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I've been working on all of this stuff. And so let me share with you some other functionality that I built into my software. I added the ability to click a button to generate a transcript for any episode. I've told you that. I added a button to where you can download a TXT file, so it instantly download the text file of the transcript. I added the ability to click a button that will copy the full transcript that has been created into your clipboard. And then right next to it, I decided currently not to implement all of the promptings and summaries inside of my app. I will build that into the app eventually, but for right now, I'm not using API calls to large language models to do the summaries inside of the app, because that will create API token usage, which does cost. I'm not worried about doing that. I mean, I've already confirmed that it's going to be like, I don't know, anywhere between 2 cents all the way up to maybe 17 cents for a 3-hour episode of a transcript being analyzed and then coming back with a summary or something like that. The actual transcript itself, it might be like 47 cents, or maybe if it's a 3-hour, it might be like 80 cents or something. These are all, like I said, I'm fleshing these out. I'm figuring it out as I go along. But for right now, I need to actually get the prompts right. And I figure, why pay a lot of API fees and tokens to get that right when I could just create custom GPTs that are available to anyone publicly? So obviously they're available to me, but also if I had a beta user who is going to be using the beta version of this software in the same way that I'm using the beta version of this software, I just went and created a ChatGPT a custom GPT, and it's called a deep dive. I'm going to go in here and look it up. I need to choose an episode that already has a transcript. So here it is. It is called the Deep Dive GPT. So anybody can go to this deep dive transcript briefing is what it's called, but it's the button is just shortened to Deep Dive GPT. And here's the process. I log in to click on a podcast that I'm subscribed to, or add a podcast to my gallery or library. I then go to the feed page and look for the episode that I'm wanting to transcribe. I will click request transcript. It takes anywhere between 10 seconds to maybe up to a minute for a very long episode for the transcription tool that I'm using now. It is very fast. I'm looking to change it because the one I'm doing right now does not do multi-speaker recognition, and I want that so that it'll say speaker 1, speaker 2, and have the labeling so that when I'm reading these transcripts, it'll be much easier for me. Anyway, but once I have requested the transcript on that episode page or the episode player page, there's the options I already told you. I can download the TXT file, and if I wanted to, I could just take that TXT file, go over to ChatGPT, drag it into a new conversation, and then hit, summarize this for me. But I don't want to have to do that. So the next thing that I had built was just go ahead and copy that transcript to the clipboard. And then once that's done, it happens instantaneously. That's a one-click copy. Then you click over to Deep Dive GPT. It opens the new tab. You are now in ChatGPT with that custom GPT that's open to the public. And all you do, your cursor is already into the chat field. You just hit paste. And it will paste that entire transcript that's in your clipboard and hit enter, because the prompting, the coding of this custom GPT already has everything that it needs to do. It's going to tell you, right now it's a very detailed, here's every topic covered. Here's a bullet point list of all the things that were said about each of these topics. And then afterwards, and by the way, I'm having it do like a 6-minute episode that I just did a transcript for. And it's like, here's 14 things that were mentioned in this 6-minute transcript. It's got a list of key insights. It's got a list of pull quotes. And those are just quotes that you might be interested in using in Twitter or social media. It's got a list of any resources that were mentioned. It'll include links, hyperlinks to those resources if they are in there. It asks, were there any calls to action? And if so, it will give you a bullet point. In this particular summary, it says no explicit calls to action were made. And then it says possible action items. And so it just gives you, based upon what it read, here are some action items you might want to consider. And then there's a closing invitation. It says, would you like to explore any of these topics in more detail? And I love that I put the prompting in here. You can just simply reference a topic number and I'll share additional insights. So for example, here's item number or topic number 10 was why this is not an issue for the speaker's clients. And so I'm just going to type in 10 and I'll hit enter, and it's now going to elaborate on that particular topic even further. So this is a custom GPT. This will eventually, it's called my Deep Dive Transcript Briefing. And this will eventually be built into a prompt inside of my software. At this point, I want to tell you that throughout this past week, I decided to give my software a name, and it's called Pod Briefer. And that's Pod, BRIEFER, trademark. Anyway, after I had done that and purchased the domain and got this all set up at podbriefer.com, I realized that there is somebody out there who created something called podbrief.io. So if you go to podbrief.io, somebody created an app that it says listen to podcasts or AI narrated summaries. And so you can go check that out. I'm going to go check out and see what they did. I was not aware that software existed, but they're not trademarked, and they're not. It doesn't have a registered trademark or anything like that. But anyway, I could, if I decide to make this publicly available. Mine is podbriefer.com. Theirs is podbrief.io. I'm not sure. I could have to potentially change the name of the software down the road. This is something I'm not concerned about. More than anything, like I said, I've built this as a tool for myself. But yeah, that's been, of course, I just want to tell you that on the episode player, it does display the show notes from the RSS feed, just like any podcast app would. And once the transcript is there, you can view the transcript right there on the episode play page. You can hide the transcript. So it's got a lot of functionality. And then all of a sudden, just this crazy idea came up to me. I told you also in the last episode that I am obsessed with e-ink readers. And I thought to myself, what if I actually implemented a send to Kindle functionality? Now, you might ask, what are you sending to Kindle? Well, anything I want, really. But right now, if you go into podbriefer.com and you go to an episode or go to the feed, and then either from the feed page or the episode page, you can request a transcript. Once a transcript is made, that's when you have before. I told you could download the TXT file, you could copy it to the clipboard, and you could click that button to send you off to ChatGPT's, the custom GPT with everything already pre-built and prompted for you. However, there's now a new feature where I can click send to Kindle. Now, to do that, I had to go and create some functionality. So, for example, I had to create a profile and settings section for each user. And in that, I created a new section called integrations. And right now there's a send to Kindle integration and it says configured. And there's also, it says Notion integration and it says coming soon. All right. So if I click the drop down on my send to Kindle, here's what you need. First, you have to connect your Gmail account. It says your Gmail account will be used to send transcript files to each user. And so what you have to do is you have to follow the instructions. It has to be a Gmail account. Now, if you're a Google Workspace user and your regular email is a Google email, that works as well. It just has to be Google, right? It has to be Google Mail. And so you enter in your email address and then you get what's called an app password. And like I said, you have to actually have two-step verification turned on. So you have to have some security there. But you get an app password that you create just for, let's just say, Podbriefer. And they give you a password that you can give to Podbriefer. And that is a very secret password. You wouldn't want to give that to anyone else. But you put in your email address and then that special app password, and you save that in settings. And that configures the Gmail portion of the Send to Kindle integration. Next, you want to put in your email address or your Kindle email address. Now, this is, if you can find this on Amazon, or you can open up your Kindle and go to settings and device, and then you're going to have a send to Kindle email. And it's usually some weird conglomeration of such and such, bunch of letters and numbers at kindle.com. Now, you also will need to go into your Amazon settings and make sure that you authorize whatever email address your Gmail address is. You need to authorize that on Amazon to be able to receive EPUBs that are attached to an email. So you save that, and then all of a sudden, all of the integration is there. So now I have it set up so that an EPUB is automatically generated at the moment that you click the button, Send to Kindle. So for example, if I go in and I'm just going to click on here so I can just in my mind think of what's happening. So a transcript has been made. I'm not going to download by the way, before this, I could have downloaded the EPUB and put it on my desktop or on my computer in the downloads folder. Then Kindle has a Send to Kindle app that you can put on your computer. You could open that up, drag your EPUB onto that interface, and then it's going to have the title automatically be what the file name is. You can add the author name if you want, and then you hit send, and it will send that to your Kindle. Now, for me, what I did is I set it up to where my software already has all of this built in. You don't have to have that app on your desktop. You don't have to download the EPUB file, although downloading the EPUB file directly is a function that's available in my software. But I can just click Send to Kindle. And as soon as I do that, by the way, I think when I do the transcript, it automatically creates your EPUB anyway. I don't think it's only when it's not generated when you click the Send to Kindle button. Once you have generated a transcript, at the same time, it's making that downloadable EPUB available. But here's what happens. An EPUB is nothing more than a digital format for an ebook. And there's some metadata that can be a part of any ebook, EPUB file. So there's usually going to be your cover artwork. And I told my software just to take the JPEG image of the podcast artwork for the podcast and automatically associate that as the cover for the ebook or the EPUB. Then I want you to take the title of the book is going to be the title of the episode. And then the author of the book is going to be the host or the author tag of the podcast. So if my podcast is Podcast Answer Man by Cliff Ravenscraft, and the title of the episode is 7 Tips for Podcast Interviews, then here's what it's going to be. My ebook is going to have the Podcast Answer Man artwork as the book cover. It's going to have the title of the book, 7 Podcast Tips, whatever I just said. That's going to be the title of the book. The author is going to say Cliff Ravenscraft because that's the actual author on my podcast title. It's also going to have a title page, and that title page is also going to have the name of the book, the name of the author, the date of the episode will be the published date. It's got all of that in there. And then the next part of the EPUB is a table of contents. You're probably familiar with this with any ebook. Yes, it has a table of contents. And the table of contents is chapter 1 and chapter 2 automatically created by default. Chapter 1 is going to be the show notes that were in the RSS feed. And then chapter 2 is the full transcript of that episode. And this is already there. So I can actually go into any podcast that I'm subscribed to, click generate transcript. As soon as it's done, I can instantly click send to Kindle. And then I open up my Kindle in about 60 seconds or less. That new ebook shows up right there on my homepage, and I can click to open it. And once it's opened, it's actually reading the artwork such that when I close it, it's going to have the cover art of the book in my Kindle app. I open it, and I can navigate to the table of contents. I can go straight to the cover, the beginning. I can go to the title page, the show notes, or the transcript. It's all right here. It's beautiful. The only thing is right now my transcripts are not, like I said, doing multi-speaker recognition. And this has all been done in the matter of 1 week. All of this has been done in the matter of 1 week. Let me see if there's anything else. Those are the big things. I did a bunch of other things like making it available for people to log in with Google without passwords. I think I already told you that. So, but all of this functionality, all of these things that I've done, so far, the total cost to me is, and actually I'm going to hit refresh because I may have done some work since the last time I refreshed this. The total cost to build this app up to date is $128.59. And what I know from clients that I've worked with in the past who have paid developers to create software, all of the stuff that I have done so far, all of the added features, all of the iterations, all of the bug fixes, everything that I have developed up to this point would have cost me close to $20,000. That I paid $128.59 so far. Now, I will tell you that before I went on this webinar with Michael Hyatt, I'm like, I don't know. I hear everybody talking about vibe coding, but I just don't know that it's for me. And I haven't used any other software other than Replit, Replit.com. By the way, if you decide you want to check this out, before you sign up, if you sign up for an account, I do have a affiliate link because I will get extra credit if you decide to go check them out. And let me just tell you that the URL I will give you is, I'm going to tell you what the URL is, but it's going to be podcastanswerman.com/Replit. That's podcastanswerman.com/REPLIT. That is my affiliate link. And I haven't set that up yet, but I will as soon as I finish recording this episode, because I know some of you eventually are going to try this out. And I want to make sure that I get my extra credits because I'm burning through some credits here. But still, the amount of stuff that I'm creating and the functionality that I'm going to be able to do. The use cases for this, I may have mentioned these already last week. Number one, I love the idea of taking an episode, and already I've done this. I will go in and generate a transcript, send to Kindle, and then I will open that transcript or that ebook or EPUB file on my Kindle, and I will go to the transcript, and then I will click play on my podcast player, and I will literally follow along. So I'm listening to them talk and I'm reading at the same time. And the cool thing is I can highlight anything that's being said. And so that by the time I'm finished with the episode, I could go into my clippings on my Kindle and get those clippings and copy all of those highlights over. So as far as I know, because it's not a Kindle book, it's not automatically going to show my highlights on my Kindle highlights page. So I don't know if you guys know this, but you could go to read.amazon.com/notebook, and any book that you either have purchased on the Kindle platform, or if you're a Kindle Unlimited user, any one that you've borrowed, any highlights you made will show up there. It'll actually have, you can search by book, but it'll show you every highlight you made in a book. But even if you don't do that, I'm going to confirm that this is true. I am going to stick my USB cable into my laptop. I'm going to now stick the other end of this USB-C cable into my Kindle. And there we go. Now, I'm using a Mac, and so by default, the most modern version of the Mac software does not instantly show you the Kindle device that you can start browsing around. But remember, I told you there's that Send Kindle app. Well, if you install that, there's a little button when you open it. It says Open USB File Manager. So I just did that, and I'm clicking the Open button. And sure enough, now it's letting me see all of the folders that are here. And I am just going to see documents. Let's see if I click there. Cannot open documents. Let's see here. Okay, so now I see, I can click the little down arrow and I see myclippings.txt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag that over to my desktop, and it just copied that over. Now what I'm doing is I am opening the myclippings.txt, and I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom of it, and I'm going to confirm that it's got this Diary of a CEO episode that I just did. And sure enough, here it is. I've got in here 3 different highlights that I just made there at the bottom of this myclippings.txt file. So I have confirmed that if I am highlighting show notes from the EPUB that I instantly sent to my Kindle, sure enough, I can hook up my USB cable, open up that Send to Kindle app, open up the USB browser, go into the documents, show the myclippings.txt, and then drag and drop that to my desktop. And you know what? I may even find even speedier and more efficient methods of getting those highlights from my Kindle. But anyway, the fact is that if I really want my highlights, I can do that from those EPUB files. These are the kinds of things that I could do. I mean, I'm still just blown away with this. What are some of the other reasons why I would do this? Not just so I can read along an ebook version of the transcript while listening to an episode, although I think that's cool. By the way, there may be a podcast that is not appealing to listen to, but I'd rather read what it says. There may be a case for that. But the other thing is this ability to summarize things. So, for example, there are many times where I'll listen to a podcast episode and I'm like, man, I really want to take notes on that. And, to get that transcript and then instantly put it into GPT and say, you know what, here's what I really like when they said this. Can you get all of that and highlight these things, write it all out in a great summary, format it beautifully, and then I can copy that and put it into my journal inside of Notion. Now, remember, I said there's a future integration coming down in the future, and that is, I know for a fact that I can build all of this Ask the transcript or Ask the episode AI inside of my software. And I could just say, you know what, this is beautiful. Send this off to my Notion journal, or send this off to this database inside of Notion, or, add this to this client inside of Notion. There are all sorts of fun things. And then I think I may have already talked about the idea of this functionality, which is to maybe I've got somebody that I just met at PodFest, for example, and they have an interview format podcast and they have a solo hosted podcast. So they have 2 different podcasts and they've been producing content for a while, but I've never listened to their show. And we've been interacting via direct messages since PodFest. And I've invited them to a 30-minute Connect call just to get to know who they are and what's going on in their world. What I could do is inside of my podbriefer.com app, I can go in and add their podcasts to my library, and then I can request transcripts on the most recent few episodes. I can randomly select which ones, both the interview format show and also their solo hosted show. And then I could easily do, send these off to the ChatGPT for summaries and go through all of that. I already, and matter of fact, I'm going to put this thought in here right now because I've had this thought so many times. I'm already creating a change request and bug report section into my Notion. So one of the things, until I build in I'm going to write this down. As a matter of fact, I'm going to dictate this. Until I build in the AI large language model summaries inside of the app, I want to create the ability to paste summaries and outlines into the episode field. The idea is that these additional notes that I make will be a new chapter in the ebook. So, in fact, they will be Cliff's notes. I will play around with that. But yeah, I'm going to add that functionality in there so that if I do go through the process of getting a summary created for that particular episode, I want to then be able to have that automatically included in that EPUB file when or if I send that EPUB to Kindle or download the EPUB. All right. Another change request is see if there's a way to save playback position for each podcast. I know that is a function that is possible, but I set it that way. Let's see, what other things are there? There's so many things about this that I love. I'm going to tell you one other function that came out of this. So I'm already subscribed to a ton of podcasts because I'm going to put in all of the podcasts of all of my peers. I'm going to put in all of the podcasts of my clients that I've been engaging with currently. And as other clients that I've worked with in the past start to come back to top of mind, I will add their podcasts into my library as well. And one of the things that I built in here is a search feature for my library. So I already have the ability to go and search iTunes, the entire iTunes directory, but there is a benefit to being able to search just what's inside of my library. So for example, if I go and click on search library right now, I'm going to just type in the name Mark Mason, by the way. All right. And so if I type in Mark Mason, the default tab is it's going to give me a list of all of the podcasts, the shows that are in my library that have either Mark Mason in the title of as the name of the show or the podcast, or in the host's name of the show. So right now there's only one podcast in here. It's Late Night Internet Marketing with Mark Mason. Okay, but there's also that same search has returned 150 results for Mark Mason. Now, if I click that tab, I can filter it by the shows that returned results. And 134 times Mark Mason's name showed up under the Late Night Internet Marketing podcast. Well, that makes sense. 8 times the name Mark Mason shows up for the Cliff Ravenscraft show. And basically, it is actually showing where does Mark Mason show up with any podcast and any episode in my subscribed library where Mark Mason is either in the name of the podcast, the name of the host of the show, his name is in the title of an episode, or his name appears in the show notes. Now, it doesn't just have to be a name. It can be a title. It could be a key phrase, or it could be a keyword. So, and I also have the ability, by the way, his name shows up 3 times in the Ray Edwards show. It shows up 2 times for the Smart Passive Income podcast, 2 times for Podcast Answer Man, and 1 time for Entrepreneur on Fire. So what I could do is I could actually go in and click and filter saying, you know what, only show me the results for, and I can choose a handful of things and it will only show me those. Or I can actually choose just one of those shows or multiple, and instead of showing me only results that include those, I can say exclude the shows that I've checked and only show me the ones that still remain. It's a cool. So now a function here is that I might meet somebody and type in their name, and I can exclude their own podcast from that search result, and I could see who of all of the podcasts that I'm subscribed to, whose podcasts of people who are already in my sphere, who have interviewed this person that I met at PodFest. And I could go in and just click on the episode where they've been mentioned, and I can find out, were they interviewed or were they just mentioned in the show notes or whatever. And then this is so cool. I hope that made sense, what I just said to you, because it makes perfect sense to me, and I'm super excited. And again, this is only one piece of software. I have already determined a bunch of other pieces of software that I want to generate for myself that I think also could potentially be of interest to others. But I think that's what I'm going to share with you for now in this episode. It has become quite the passion project. I am super excited to also share with you that this past week, I brought in our second member of the Next Level Mastermind. We relaunched. Our first meeting back was this past Tuesday. Stephanie and I are co-facilitating the Next Level Mastermind together, as we have been for the last several years. But now that we've relaunched, she is continuing to co-facilitate. We had our first member. Her name is Jackie Ulmer. She has 3 podcasts that she's produced over the years, doing some amazing things in this world as an entrepreneur as well. Had a great first meeting. And then on Thursday, I had a connect call with somebody who has been in my community for over 20 years. And he's like, Cliff, I'm ready to join the mastermind. Let's talk, tell me what's all involved. He instantly signed the agreement, set up his payment subscription, and his first meeting is this coming Tuesday. So we're already up and running with 2 new members in the group, myself and Stephanie, the 4 of us meeting every week. And I am very excited about that. Also, I have other people who have been listening to Podcast Answer Man, and they've heard me talking about the fact that I'm bringing back the Next Level Mastermind. I'm already getting some interest from others via direct message in Facebook from those who are on the entrepreneurial journey. So yeah, and that's all I've done is just mention it like here and there in a podcast episode, and I sent 1 email to my mailing list, and so it looks like we might get this group filled by the end of February, maybe. So if not, certainly by the end of March. It is a primary focus of mine to find content creators who mostly identify as the solopreneur route. Although I'm perfectly fine, and we've always had members in the Next Level Mastermind where the person who is in it is the founder/business owner, and they may even have a team of 5 to 10 people, or they may have several employees or whatever. But you get the idea. This is the person who is the founder of the company. This is their baby. This is something that they're passionate about. It's work that they're doing that is of service first to others, but they're also very much inclined to make sure that they are profitable. It's really tough to be out there in the world and not have other people who understand the things that you face as a business owner. And so I provide that for them in the same way that the Green Room Mastermind has provided that for me ever since October 2010. And so that's been fun. Another little by the way, if you are interested, email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com, put Next Level Mastermind in the subject line. I'd be happy to chat with you about whether or not the Next Level Mastermind group would be a good fit for you. Let's see here. What else? Speaking of the Green Room Mastermind, not too long ago, it was not this weekend, but last weekend, or was it the weekend? No, I think it was just last weekend. Last weekend, let's see here, 4 of the 6 of us, no, is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4. It might have been 3 of the 6 of us. So half of us got together. It was myself, Myself, Mark Mason, and Mike Stelzner. The three of us got together for another poker night playing Texas Hold'em. And I did not win. Michael Stelzner took all of the winnings home that night. He did a really great job and was very awesome. I usually do very well in the Green Room Mastermind poker nights, but we don't play for money. It's a virtual game. We get online. We use the service called pokernow.com, and it's absolutely free. We jump on a Zoom call and we just sit there and talk. Sometimes we talk a little shop, but it's mostly just very personal and lots of fun. And sometimes there's some jabs and some joking around, and it's just a good time. So much fun. Stephanie and I are really enjoying some great television shows in the evenings and on the weekends. We've been going down the route of murder mysteries, prompted by my friend Michael Stelzner, who told us about the new Knives Out movie. I can't remember what the name of it is, but it was the third Knives Out movie. We enjoyed it. Then also he told us about Seven Dials, which is a mini-series on Netflix based upon an Agatha Christie novel called Seven Dials. And that book was from the 1920s. Ironically, that book from Agatha Christie is in the public domain, and you can download it via an EPUB and read it on your e-reader. But we watched the entire Seven Dials miniseries and enjoyed it. And that just got Stephanie and I, after watching that movie and then that series, it just got us down a rabbit trail of murder mysteries and suspense thrillers. And we've been enjoying ourselves, having lots of fun. Anyway, these are the random things that have been going on in my world this week. Another behind-the-scenes personal dialogue. The rabbit trail of vibe coding. I can't believe that I'm sitting here developing software by simply typing into a chat box, and it's doing everything. I didn't have to go and set up an S3 account with Amazon. I didn't have to go and pay for a virtual private server and configure anything. I'm not using Claude Code, actually Claude Code may at some point be built into Replit. I just created a Replit account and it's hosting everything for me. And even setting up my own domain and getting it all associated, it's just easy. Again, if you are interested, podcastanswerman.com/Replit. Link in the show notes for the affiliate link there if you decide you want to sign up. And I think that's going to wrap it for this episode. If you are interested in the Next Level Mastermind, email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. If you are interested in one-on-one coaching and you'd like to spend just an hour with me and maybe have me show you this software behind the scenes and give you an idea of what's possible for you, a single one-off session, I'd be willing to consider that. If you want to inquire about what that would look like, just email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. Until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.
Podcast Answer Man.